have a specific experience with Jase Case. I could have had a nightmare type situation on a trip that I had. Instead, it turned into one of the best trips that we've had in our life.
Having an actual antibiotic or a prescription medication was something that we'd never been able to fill. Having that Jase Case with me has provided a tremendous amount of comfort in case something were to happen.
That's something that I really hadn't thought about up until the last year or so, and that was medications. Don't have to worry about getting caught off out in the middle of nowhere without my Jase Case.
It's another way that you can take care of your family.
My name is Randy Burnett. I currently live in Utah. I've been there for a few years now. I spent a lot of, about 17 years prior to that, I spent in Georgia. Currently, I work in construction. I've done construction for about 20 years along with the farming and ranching. So I'm constantly getting myself injured in one way or another, especially on the farm as well. Between farming and ranching, there's been a huge part of our family. It's always been something that we've felt was very important for us. And we've always been the type of family to travel and to find ourselves out in the middle of nowhere. How far out can we get? How far away from civilization can we be? I always want to be somewhere where I don't feel like there's people watching me and I can just breathe the fresh air. You get out into those areas, you have to spend a lot of time to get there and a lot of time to get out. Having that Jase Case with me has provided a tremendous amount of comfort in case something were to happen. So I had the experience with the Jase Case last year. I wanted to take my kids to Colorado, where I grew up. I grew up skiing there. I wanted to take them on a ski trip. A few days before Christmas, I took them there. We loaded up the car, and while we were loading up the car, I noticed my tooth was kind of hurting. I didn't really think much of it at the time, but I grabbed my Jase Case, I threw it in the car, and we headed out the road. We get out there and we're skiing and we're having a great time, and my tooth just starts to hurt worse and worse. And eventually I was having extreme pain in my mouth and in my jaw and even up into my head. And I started to get really worried. I didn't know what was going on. And so here it is, it's the day before Christmas. I'm trying to get a hold of my dentist. I'm trying to get hold of any dentist. I'm traveling, I'm out of state, I'm with my kids. I remembered in the past I had an infection in my tooth, and it felt very similar to this. And I remembered they had prescribed me an antibiotic for that. And I couldn't remember all the details about it, but I remembered, I had my Jase Case. I knew that there was a lot of different antibiotics in there, but I couldn't remember exactly what was in there. So I opened up the case, and there's this information booklet in there that I was able to open. It had a detailed description of each one of the medications that are contained in the case. And it also has information about the many different symptoms that those medications can treat. And so that was really important for me, making sure that I selected the correct one. This little information booklet is amazing for the amount of information that it has in there. If you're out in a remote place and you can't get a hold of a doctor or a dentist, just kind of like I couldn't because it was the holidays, having all this information at your fingertips was amazing. I reached in and found that antibiotic in my Jase Case, and I started taking it immediately. On Christmas Day, I started to feel a little bit of relief, and then I still had no response from the dentist or could get a hold of anybody. It's Christmas, nobody's working. It wasn't until 2 days after Christmas that I was finally able to get in to see the dentist. Over those couple days, that pain had started to go away a little bit, and when I went to the dentist, sure enough, I had an infection, and he said, "We're gonna need to get you on an antibiotic right away." I said, "Well, actually I've already been taking one." He said, "That's great. We would have needed you to be on that antibiotic for a few days anyways, so that we could do that root canal because that infection was bad." Had I not had the Jase Case with me, and had I not had started that antibiotic right away, most likely the infection would have gotten worse. It would have progressed. It could have abscessed, and it could have been a lot worse.
My name is Amanda Davis. I'm from Arizona, and I've lived in Arizona about 17 years total. I found out about Jase Case when I was watching TV. It sparked an interest to me because I have had an issue with UTIs. I had surgery on my kidney and bladder when I was 3 years old and was told that I would typically have issues with them throughout my lifetime. Additionally, also my grandmother, she had a UTI and ended up passing when she was older because it got into her bloodstream. So I'm fully aware just the importance of just being careful if you have one. I know a lot of women have issues with them. It's something that can be kind of embarrassing to talk about. So in thinking about the UTIs, and generally speaking, I just felt like it would be something important for me to have on hand. This fall, we decided to take a trip to the Bahamas and the Exuma Islands. I was very, very excited. And it was just myself and my 2 sons. And 2 hours before the plane was supposed to take off, I get a notification that our flight was canceled. We stayed the night at the Dallas airport. And that's actually when I started noticing a little bit of the UTI symptoms for me. I was first initially upset and thinking like, this is not good. If I have to go somewhere in another country and drag my children with me because I was the only adult, where am I going to go? Is this going to be a legit doctor? Will it even help? And so then I thought about what I packed, and I packed the Jase Case, and it has different medications. From my experience, I know some medications, it's very specific with UTI, like one antibiotic necessarily doesn't fix it if it's not the right one. So I like in the Jase Case, it has actually different options. So if one of them is not the correct antibiotic, then you have other options, you're not stuck. And so I ended up taking 2 doses one day, and then the next morning I took the 3rd dose, and I could feel the difference. I could tell that I was already getting better. So for me, I was really excited because in my mind, I'm thinking, I could have just spent thousands of dollars coming here and a lot of tears, both myself and my kids having to go back, or just the stress of trying to find the doctor in another location that's out of our country, and who knows what would happen. And instead, I was just easily to take care of it, just the medical freedom to be able to have the medication right there. And I could even call them or email them, but it comes with instructions if I needed. So it just worked out like that could have been the worst trip, but it ended up being the best trip that we've ever had.
My name's Thomas Mann. I'm from South Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas. Worked in the oil field all my life. Retired 2 years ago. Small towns is where I grew up. The first time I heard about the Jase Case was on the Glenn Beck program. I got on the internet, looked it up, and thought, this is a good idea. About 6 years ago, we went through Hurricane Harvey, which was a Category 4 hurricane. We were without power for about a week at my house. We had neighbors that were out of power for over 2 weeks, and 15, 20 miles from where I live, they're off power grid for months. So I've got a little prepped closet with emergency rations and water filters. I bought me a generator that I can run about 3 days worth of power on the house. And I'd never really thought about medications. For days, we've got tree limbs, we've got nails, we've got all kinds of stuff all over the yard. What happens if you get cut or you get hurt or whatever, and you can't get to a doctor's office, or the doctor's offices still don't have power? Like I said, I've had everything else. I've had food, water, electricity. I've prepared for all that, but I forgot about the medications. I looked it up, looked good, ordered it, got it in, and now I have a supply of antibiotics in my little prep cabinet, and it comes in handy when we go on trips too. And I've always thought, when we go on vacation to the mountains, a little family cabin, what happens if we get up there and I get snowed in for a couple days and one of these things come on me? Well, I don't have to worry about it because I've got this Jase Case. It has the same antibiotics in it that my doctor would prescribe. Talk about peace of mind. I've got it now. I don't have to worry about that when we're up in the mountains, which now that I'm retired is going to be a little more often.
My name is Carly Thuitt, and I live in Utah. I have 3 kids. I'm a young mom, and emergency preparedness is really important to me. My husband and I work together to make sure our family stays healthy. Having the Jase Case and the Jase medical products in our home is part of that. My husband bought a Jase Case for us, and that was the first time that I had heard of Jase Medical. I didn't even know that that type of product existed. All I can do is have the resources to help my kids in any situation. And The Jase Case does that. We always take it with us when we travel, just in case. You never know what's going to happen. And so when we're away from our family doctor and knowing that we still can have the medicine for any emergency is very comforting.
I'm Bunny Gibson, and I guess for a lot of senior citizens out there, they would remember me because I am one of the original dancers from Dick Clark's American Bandstand. Well, they were great days, and I was full of energy and my great physical condition. And who would have ever thought that I would get older and be? I think I did too much twisting, and I ended up having like 7 operations. Now I can still dance. In fact, I can dance better than I can walk. But I do have to take a lot of medications. I didn't ever think that I'd be somebody who was sitting there with all these bottles in front of me and taking all this. It does give me some concern. Like, for instance, I went to Paris with my girlfriend for our vacation, and I began to think, whoa, well, what will happen? So there I am, calling my doctor, asking if she could give me a prescription so I could take it just in case. I really feel that Jase Case offers you something. It offers you peace of mind. So I would know that when I go away, I'm covered.
Ashton Morris, I'm from Jackson, Tennessee. I grew up playing sports, high school, college, a little bit of gridiron. Family is very important to me, a large family. Knowing that not only my kid, but also my mom and my aunt who has some disabilities and some issues that essentially needs assistance, and she is on prescribed medication. And a lot of times too, my mother getting older and my aunt is getting older as well. Having a Jase Case in my family's home, when they run out of certain things and my aunt needs certain prescriptions, it could be small or minor, it could be something for a cold, that my mom doesn't have to go out after a long day of working to have to go prescribe or take time off to do everything else, where that medicine is there. Just for the simple fact of my family having access to that could save so much time and make overall the health benefits of my family. I think the Jase Case would be very beneficial with a lot of people who have prescriptions at smaller rural areas that the pharmacy might not be open some days, close early, those small towns, that availability, sort of those small ailments that people have, or even, in natural disasters as well. When I was growing up as a kid, we had a real big ice storm, and I remember that we were stuck in the house for a week. So imagine having that access to medical. You get those bad days.
So yeah, we had food and we had water, but there was always this worry of, what if we needed something like a medication? What would we do? I mean, we're out in this rural area where hurricanes were constantly coming through. There was times where we would have no power for a week or two at a time if a storm came through. There was times where we actually had been trapped on our farm for over a week. And so we always had that thought, like, man, what if I got cut and I got an infection? Or what if we got sick and we couldn't get help? What would we do? All of this other preparedness we've made wouldn't make a difference if we were sick and could not get the medical attention that we needed.
As mentioned, I grew up in Tennessee tornadoes. Everything gets shut down in Jackson. Like, if you got a basement, you're hiding, trying to protect yourself. So we might be out of commission for 1 or 2, 3 days where we might not have no access. And this is a town, 50, 60,000 people. If the roads are closed and people aren't able to get there and you need medicine, you have that availability.
There's a lot of stress about different natural disasters, COVID, different supply chain issues, and if our technology goes down, then what are you going to do to reach out to your doctor? There's a lot of options with technology, but if we are not able to use our cell phone, if your battery dies, which happens every day to people, and you find yourself in a medical situation where you need help, then that could cause some major issues or be life-threatening for yourself or your children.
It takes long enough to get here when you don't have any disruptions, let alone if something were to happen and there became a shortage of those medicines, I mean, just in a situation with mine, a simple infection could have turned into something deadly, really. It could have turned into something extremely dangerous. It kind of worries me knowing that so much of our medicine and the ingredients that are contained in the antibiotics that we have are outsourced to other countries. Most of our stuff, I believe, comes from China. What happens if we have a disruption in that ingredient or that antibiotic coming from another country to us?
What are all the little things that have to go right for that to get to us? So if anything goes wrong, then someone doesn't have a life-saving medicine.
A lot of times we think we can get all the information that we need on our phones. I've been in situations before, just like when the hurricanes would come through and knock out power, where we would lose our cell phone service as well, and we would have no internet. There's also times when you might be in a remote location or even traveling in areas where it's very remote and you may not have a signal, you may not have the use of your phone, you may not have access to the internet. Getting access to the information you need in those situations could be pretty difficult. There is a fear out there, I think, for people who need something and they may not be able to get it. And that's why you see the panic that happens when something bad happens. People panic and they run out and they start trying to buy up what they need. And you're out there with everyone else trying to do the same thing. If you had what you needed on hand and something bad happened, you could just stay home and feel good knowing that you're prepared and you have what you need in that situation. And the great thing about the Jase case is it's something that's portable. You can take it with you. If you had to leave the area where you were in a big city and you needed to get out or you needed to leave for some reason, that's something you can take with you very easily. I brought it with me today.
Another thing about being prepared is you're taking responsibility for yourself. We depend too much on others for our food or medication. It's provided for us. You want something to eat, you run down to the grocery store and grab it. Well, what happens if you can't? What happens when the electricity goes out? What happens when you can't pick up the phone and call a doctor because the cell towers aren't working? You have that peace of mind if you've thought ahead and you've prepared and you have your medical situation taken care of. You've got your medications taken care of.
It has been challenging for me in situations where my lights have gone off and you don't know whether they're going on again. I mean, if I had Jase Case and I had my supply there, I could just relax and weather everything until things got better.
Really, Jase is amazing because they have a doctor that will review your previous history and could answer questions on what medications may help. And so you're still able to benefit from having the medications that you may need.
So Jase Medical having an online visit that you could simply do an online form, let's get an evaluation from a board certified physician. So an actual doctor doing all of your evaluation, sends it straight to your house so you don't have to go worry about picking it up. They just get shipped straight at your door. And then just ongoing care. So sending your fitted, just to be able to give related questions to the doctor and you get ongoing care. So if things change, go on, you can get those updates and follow up with the Jase Medical. It's just an important aspect of it. And I think that probably overall is great satisfaction. It makes me want to purchase one. I know that Jase Medical is giving you and providing you actual, real, true medical help. Yeah, I'm getting a real doctor telling me what I need and how to prescribe and send it to me. And that's important. And I think that takes Jase Medical to a different level or something we haven't seen.
I tend to research a lot, so I did look at other companies and do my own comparison. And I felt like the other companies were not as streamlined just to get the information. I know one company specifically was requesting my personal information before I could see what medications were included. And when I was researching, look at Jase Case, it clearly tells you what medications were included.
And then when it comes to my kids, I want them to have also what they need. Having the Jase Case for each individual is, I think, important. I don't want anybody tapping into mine. I want my own Jase Case for me. I want my wife to have her own. I want my mom to have her own, because we all have different medical needs and medical conditions. I make sure I bring it with me everywhere I go, because that was a situation where I wasn't planning on being anywhere where I was gonna need it, but I grabbed it just in case, and I was really glad I had it. And that's kind of what preparedness is. It's being prepared in situations that you're not expecting, or thinking you're going to need to have something, but you're prepared for that time.
Time matters in medical emergencies. If I could just reach for a Jase medical product in my home versus having to drive or, access a doctor in any way, with the Jase Case, it could mean life.
So if you're sitting on the fence trying to decide whether you should go ahead and make the decision to be prepared, especially with your medications, go ahead and do it. It's worth it. You have the peace of mind knowing that it's there when you need it. If you need it, pick up the phone, get it done.
We went on a tube water slide that went through where sharks were, and so that was a little scary. But then at the very top of this water slide, in my mind as we're climbing up higher, I'm thinking, this is getting a little high. I don't know if I want to do this water slide. But I just kept it to myself. So I got a teenage son. I want to enjoy the moments I have with him. So at the very top, my son is like, Mom, I think this is a little high. I don't know if I want to do this water slide. So I just started laughing, and we ended up dancing in the rain and just making a great memory. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have Jase Medical.